repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Welcome. It is season 2, and this is episode 2 of season 2 for Positive Blatherings with Fitz. And I'm very lucky that I have Kelsea Little in here from, what's the name of the podcast again?
True Stories of Good People.
True Stories of Good People. How could that not be on the Blathering? You know what I'm saying? And she works for GoFundMe, and that's GoFundMe's official podcast.
Yes.
And I was fortunate enough that you were just like sort of traveling through town. You're doing it on your podcast road show, which is, and we're going to talk about your gig, this dream gig that she has for GoFundMe. But did a little Google search, found the old Rock Vox, and said, "Hey, can I book some time to record a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, come on by." I got GoFundMe in the house, so we're all excited. And then I was, doubly excited to find out that it was a positive podcast. You showcase people that do wonderful things, or I was just totally blown away by that. It was just like all the stars were aligned for us. So how did you get that gig to go around and do podcasts, as your job?
Yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant.
So I feel like I shouldn't even talk about it out loud, lest they snatch it away from me. I don't want to jinx it, but because it is a dream job. So I have been with GoFundMe for 6 years, almost since the beginning. I was employee number 13, 14, or 15, depending on who you ask. I got there first that day with my starting class, so I think I'm number 13. And it was really, it's one of those things that is a rare occurrence where you join a tech startup and you hope it's going to become one of those unicorn companies, and then it actually does.
Yeah, you're like, what?
I still can't believe it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to be at the ground floor or something like that.
Yeah, so when I started, maybe like I did this like litmus test. I would just ask people if they'd heard of GoFundMe, just random out in the world, like Uber driver, whoever. And it was like 3 out of 10 people had heard of GoFundMe back then in 2013. And then now it's, if people haven't heard of it, I'm like, what have you been doing?
What rock are you living under?
So when I started, there was no marketing or communications department. Our CEO did everything himself. He was CEO. He was like head of design. He was head of marketing, head of comms. And of course that quickly became too much work for him. So,
I'd love to have that problem, by the way.
Yeah, it was a good problem to have. But, I quickly moved over from our customer service team where I started. And then I was able to be the founding member of our communications team. And so for a long time I did manage all of our external PR teams. I got to go over to London and Paris to open offices over there. I just spent like the best job already. But then while I was over there, I was about to come back, and they always kind of put me on experimental stuff. I'm good at like operationalizing things. Mm-hmm. And I started getting really into podcasts when Serial came out. I think that was a story for a lot of people that alerted me to podcasts, and then I was suddenly subscribed to like 80 of them, and I could never keep up with all of them.
Right.
And my job has always been in storytelling at GoFundMe, and these stories are so incredible. They make me cry. There's a custom emoji of me at work that's just like me sobbing, because that's just all I do all day is read these stories and start crying. And so I was like, it's insane that we don't have a podcast. Podcasts are the up-and-coming medium. These stories lend themselves so well because they hit home the best if the subjects tell them themselves.
Sure.
So I pitched it to my bosses, and I said, let me make a pilot season, or just a few pilot episodes. I said I could do it for really cheap. We tried some video experiments before that were just really like time intensive, labor intensive, and I was like, this will be really cost effective. Let me try. And they liked them. So I made a first season, 12 episodes, it went really well. And so now season 2 is currently running, and we're doing an episode a week all year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I get to travel all over the U.S.
So the one that you recorded today, that's part of season 2?
Yes.
So how quickly are you turning this around that you recorded today? When's that going to drop?
So because an episode comes out every week, I can't be traveling I have like a life back at home and everything.
You do?
So, yeah.
You have a life back at home?
I do.
Good for you.
But putting out an episode a week requires some travel. So what I like to do is record in batches. Mm-hmm. So this trip I'm on right now is New York State trip, I'm calling it. So I'm doing 10 interviews in the course of like a week, a little over a week. So that will give me 2.5 months more programming.
Wow.
So right now I have a backlog.
So your first season was 12 episodes, but now your second season is...
It's just going straight.
52 episodes?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I need to take like a 2-week break so I can call it season 3 or something. But I don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, so our 40th episode overall just came out the other week.
Cool.
So we're approaching 50 soon. And then this one will probably come out. Well, we were just talking, my interview subject and I, their story has to do with childhood cancer. And I'll work with our communications team sometimes to see if there's some, editorial thing that might make sense. So we'll probably put it out in September because it's National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
That makes sense.
It's perfect. Yeah. And I was sitting back in the control room while you were doing the podcast, and I was loving it. I got to hear the podcast first.
Oh.
I was the first person to hear it.
Sneak peek.
Yeah. But that, that's when I saw what your podcast was. This whole time I just had you booked and I'm busy and I'm da-da-da.
Of course.
And I'm just like, it's GoFundMe's podcast. And finally I was sitting there and I'm like, what is GoFundMe's podcast? What is it going to be? And so when I saw that it was a positivity-based podcast, I'm like, oh, let's see if she's got a few minutes to blather afterwards. So let's go back in time just a bit. What is your background? Where did you, go to school? Where are you from?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
So I was technically not born in San Diego, but I was raised there since I was like 2, so I feel like I'm from there.
Okay,
I don't remember Colorado. I don't remember it at all. So I'm a San Diego native, and I went to UC San Diego, and I studied literatures of the world.
That's a useful major.
Super useful.
At the time, were you planning on being an author or a professor? Or
I wanted to be a teacher.
You wanted to be a teacher,
then, or a writer.
Yeah.
I always have loved storytelling.
Sure.
But I think, literature, any sort of degree, is basically an English degree, and I really think it's super adjacent to a communications degree because you learn, if you have a really firm grasp of language and how to communicate ideas to people and make them, buy into it or feel emotion from it, I think that is the root of what communications is.
Yeah.
I didn't study like marketing or anything. I didn't really know what SEO was until I got to GoFundMe or that kind of technical stuff.
Yeah,
but that's where I think my background is strong for this sort of thing. And then once I got to GoFundMe, and I say I founded our communications team, but I didn't have any formal communications training other than being a good writer.
You know what, though? In all honesty,
yeah.
Today, in my opinion, having good writing skills to me means that you can do just about everything apart from doing open heart surgery.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
I shouldn't do that.
And none of us should really. But it's true because there are like podcasting. All right. So I've been messing with podcasting since 2005. But literally messing with it.
Yeah.
When it first came out, it was so difficult to do. Now it's just like you edit it and you upload it and boom, it's a podcast and everybody down. And wow, this is cool. Back then, you had to know how to code it and make enclosures and add it to your blog, and it was HTML. Really convoluted. Yeah. And I saw Kevin Smith and Joe Rogan doing this stuff, or not Joe Rogan. That was before Joe Rogan. Adam Carolla. Yeah. And I'm like, well, these nimrods can do it. How come I can't figure it out? But then I realized that they're famous people that have teams. They were able to, let's take our $20,000 and make a podcast. That's my Adam Carolla impression. Like so, you starting with GoFundMe, and getting into this new territory, having the writing skills and the storytelling background was just a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And also, GoFundMe was this new tech startup, this new tech. How did that land in your lap?
Oh man, I love telling the story because I just can't believe it still. So after college, this was my first full-time job after college. So right after college, I did a 6-month internship at this university in San Diego, and they had all these professionalism classes that help you build out a LinkedIn profile and all this stuff. And then it was coming to an end, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to get out there. Let's see what's available. So I posted on my Facebook, and I said, if anyone sees any jobs in the writing or editing or that kind of field, let me know. And it was 1 minute later, my friend, an internet whiz, he looked on Craigslist in the writing section, and he sent me a Craigslist link, which turned out to be a GoFundMe application. Huh. And the application was, albeit on Craigslist, but it was super funny. They just made it kind of reminiscent of their culture. And I applied, and GoFundMe, its first office was in this really shitty building. So I pulled up, and I guess it's still 10 people at that time, and I was I don't know if I'm in the right place. And I just, from the day one, I was this is special. You could just feel it, and it's been so amazing to see it grow.
That's got to be. I mean, it's like a baby for you.
Yeah.
So the Craigslist link turns into a job.
A career.
A career, it's more than a job. It's definitely more than a job. I mean, this is a future. This is the kind of thing that, unless everything goes horribly wrong, which I'm sure it won't, you stay here until you're just all right, I got to move on.
Yeah.
And some people never do that.
Yeah.
And so you come into Rochester, there are people that worked for Kodak, because this is a Kodak town. Worked for Kodak for 30, 40 years. You worked for one company longer. Almost. I was 6. I'm 46. I was 6 when you started. So that kind of thing blows my mind.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Kodak is not doing as well as it used to, but it really did build this town.
Yeah.
Does GoFundMe have that kind of presence in San Diego? I know San Diego's quite bigger than Rochester, but does it have that kind of presence there?
It does not. So,
how many people work at GoFundMe? Kodak is different. They have factories, and they made film and stuff. So obviously, completely different scale.
Yeah.
But you say San Diego, you say tech.
Yeah.
I think of San Francisco, not San Diego, which is completely opposite end of the state.
Yeah.
So what kind of things? I know San Diego's kind of like a Navy town, isn't it? Is it a military town, or
there's a military base there? But so GoFundMe was founded in San Diego by these two guys who very much consciously founded it outside of Silicon Valley. They wanted to build the company I know that with integrity is not the right word, but just outside, because Silicon Valley, so we have a corporate headquarters in Silicon Valley now where our executive team is, a lot of our engineering team is up there, but the largest office is still in San Diego. We've got small offices now too abroad, like I was saying, London and Paris and Dublin. But the founders also, they made such I feel like I learned a lot from watching them build this thing. They made some interesting decisions that they were just really smart. So they kind of didn't make a big deal about the fact that GoFundMe was in San Diego. They were really conscious about the safety of our employees. So you don't think about it's an online platform, but when money is involved, they just wanted us to kind of fly under the radar a little bit. And so not a lot of people even know that GoFundMe is in San Diego, actually. But I'd say it's more of this just nebulous idea. That's kind of what my goal with the podcast is, to humanize GoFundMe a little bit more, because
it totally, that's interesting that you say that, because that's exactly the effect that I got, because I have quite a bit of experience with crowdfunding. So we're shooting a movie here, a feature comedy, and we tried crowdfunding, but not on GoFundMe.
Okay,
forgive me.
No,
with Indiegogo.
How dare you?
With Indiegogo, and we really were underwhelmed. It's not Indiegogo's fault.
Yeah,
it's the fact that nobody wants to give us money to make a movie, which I can understand. People want to hold on to their money; they don't want to give it to two schleps that are going to make a movie.
Yeah.
But from my perspective of crowdfunding, going back, I think the first time I crowdfunded something was in 2011, and it was on Indiegogo. It was my first short film, and I raised $600 or $700 to shoot this film. And GoFundMe came out, what'd you say, in 13?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
All right, so it was out there, but it was small.
It was small.
Because I only knew of Kickstarter and Indiegogo back then. And so it wasn't until 2013 or 14 that it really started to gain some momentum and become nationally recognized.
Correct. Yeah, it really started to gain traction after, I think, Hurricane. Which one was that? Oh, the big tornadoes. So GoFundMe's now really associated with emergency response stuff. So the first time there was a big natural disaster after GoFundMe was around, a ton of campaigns were created right at that time, and that was all over the news, and we saw a huge spike in traffic after that. So
the first time I heard about it was a story here in Rochester.
Really?
Where, and you might recall this, I believe her name was Karen. She was a bus monitor, and there's video of her being treated terribly by some kids.
Oh gosh.
Some bratty kids on the bus, and they were throwing stuff at her, calling her names, and so she's this nice old lady. Oh. And so someone created a GoFundMe account and raised an ungodly amount of money. It was $700,000 or something. We're like, what? I was like, put me on the bus. Yeah. Treat me badly. But so that was the first time that I really saw the power of that. So I think it's very interesting, because I thought of it just as this monolith of a company, right? But then I saw the podcast that you do, and it did exactly what you said. It humanized GoFundMe. Yeah. I was like, oh, so their podcast isn't about, I don't know what it would be, but I thought, about how to raise, exactly, something boring, and you're going around, and so are all the stories that you do are based on people that you find their story through GoFundMe, and that's the connection, right? That's
the connection. So all of the stories are focused on people who've used the GoFundMe platform to do something amazing for someone else or for their communities or in the world. And I consciously created the podcast to allow those stories to lead and to have GoFundMe take a back seat. I try not to say the word GoFundMe too many times. It's not about us. Point. Yeah, I want it to be about the stories, because they really are the most incredible people, and I really do cry all the time, at work or in these interviews. Sometimes I get very emotional. They're very serious situations, and it's just an honor that they've trusted GoFundMe to be honestly a big part of their lives at a certain point in time, and I take that very seriously. So I want to do their stories justice.
That's really cool, and I think you should. It's when someone is going, and these are people that are going through arguably the worst time of their lives.
A lot of times, yeah.
And if because of the tool that is created by GoFundMe, that mechanism, they're able to change their future. They're able to change their their finance, like all those things. I would imagine that they would be overwhelmed with joy.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, like please GoFundMe, come over and have dinner.
Yeah.
When you say that that's where you're from.
Yeah.
And then, so are people really surprised when you talk about the podcast and what you do from the podcast?
Like people who I email?
Yeah. When you reach out to them and they're like, oh, that's really cool that you're doing that. I would imagine that they're kind of surprised that that's the podcast that you do. Like we said, you would be like, oh, can you talk about what it was like to make a withdrawal?
Yeah.
Like boring things,
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a testament to our kind of the experience that you have as a GoFundMe campaign organizer. So a lot of times when I reach out to these people with these amazing stories, it's not the first time they've interacted with someone from our company. And so we've got like teams that are dedicated to providing like in the moment support to these campaigns, especially that go like really big, like this one that we had today. And so it's wonderful. Like when I reach out to them, they're so excited to hear from us again because they had such a great experience the first time. So shout out to our customer service teams who like prime these interactions to be really positive from the get-go. They're always so excited. How
is this experience changed you since day one, episode 1 to now where you are traveling around, meeting these people, telling their stories, seeing them face to face? It's got to be life-changing. It really is like I keep saying, like I don't want to jinx it because I don't think you can jinx it. I really think that it's like too good to be true. Yeah, I know what you mean. But I mean the stories themselves, like I feel like I do good things sometimes, but then I meet these in the world, but I meet these people and you're like I'm a schlep. It just is so deeply inspiring to me to meet these people in real life too. So like at GoFundMe, my job's always had to do with storytelling and finding these amazing stories on the platform. And they do seem like real people to us, but they're also just like stories on my computer screen. So to get to meet them in person, I tell almost everybody that I meet that I'm as excited to meet them or more than like any celebrity that I could possibly think of because they are like celebrities to us. Yeah. So that's been life-changing to meet them in person. And then honestly, I feel like this has kind of set me on a career path. Like I've always kind of had I'm a musician, so I love performing and that's always been part of my life. What do you play? The harp. You're a harpist? But like rock harp. Rock harp. I used to have a band, and it was like a full indie rock band set up, but with harp instead of guitar. Oh, sweet! Sing, it's awesome. There's like kind of a rock harpist in just outside of Buffalo. Really? Michaela Davis. Have you heard of her? No. She's I've never met her, but I've seen her a lot on the inner tubes, on the interwebs, and she does that. But that's really, really cool. Yeah. So you've got that creativity inside you. That's in your soul. Yes. And this has allowed me to channel exactly that creativity in a way that I never thought of before. Yeah. But it feels like it feels like kismet to me. It's like combining all of the things that I have loved doing my whole life into this thing where I'm like, I never want to stop doing it. So it's been life-changing. I have this, and this is not my own original thought by any means, and a lot of people subscribe to this idea, is that the more you live inside of a world of gratitude, of positivity, of paying it forward, all of that stuff, where your essence is vibrating along with the universe at the right time. Not to get too woo, but it brings more of that. Yeah, you get more of that. So the more smiles that you get from people, that you give to people, you get back, and all that kind of thing. That's right. So this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is I was going through quite a lot of changes, and I wanted to surround myself with people who were living in that way, who were being successful because of their attitude, because they weren't taking no for an answer. When they fell down, they got back up. Nice. I've in my past fallen down ground and just rolled around and wallowed in being on the ground, and had to start learning from people like yourself that I get to talk with for a short period of time. But it inspires me and helps me to move forward and me to keep going on. And I'll hopefully apply something that I learned from you today to what I'm doing in the future. And I'm sure that that's how, when you speak to people and get to share their story and have that conversation with them, I'm sure that when you're done, you're like, even if it's 6 months down the road, something will click that you'll remember something that they said, like the little girl that was in here today.
Yes.
What was the title? That was what was it? Inspiration something?
CEO, Chief Inspiration Officer.
Chief Inspiration Officer. I'm getting them now. Goosebumps. Yeah. That is such a cool title.
I know.
Chief Inspiration Officer. Yes. And is that something that she came up with?
I mean, I think her family came up.
Yeah, they came up with it together.
Yeah, but of her own nonprofit organization, she's about to be 9 years old.
Right, she's 9 years old.
It's crazy.
Exactly. I mean, at 9 years old, I was the most selfish person in the world. So what do you have coming up for you? What's in your immediate future, and then what's kind of on the horizon?
Yeah, so for the podcast,
and you in general, just everything. Yeah. So, I mean, I am really focused on the podcast right now. So we are in season 2, and I really want to take it to the next level somehow. I'm trying to figure out some sort of amplification trick or something to win an award. That's kind of my goal. I want it to. That'd be cool. It'd be cool to win an award. But I think you're definitely on the path. You're definitely on that path. Just with the goal of getting these stories in front of more people, because podcasting, even GoFundMe, is a huge company. Huge platform and everything, but still our podcast is like a grassroots thing, even though we're a huge company. So it's hard to get a podcast, the people to listen to it. Yeah. So there's just so many of them. Yes, there's so many. So every single listen and stream, I'm so grateful for. Yeah. But short term, so I'm on this 9-day long trip right now, short term. So I have 7 more interviews. And are you by yourself on this trip? I'm by myself all the time when I travel. All the time, really? Mm-hmm. I love traveling alone, though. That's one of my joys in life. That's really cool. I did a lot of traveling in my 20s when I worked for a cruise line. I traveled all around the Med and all around the Caribbean and stuff like that. Awesome. I hated being by myself. Yeah, you did. I was terrible by myself. I'm like a solo travel expert. That's cool. I could eat it in like a fancy restaurant alone. I don't feel weird. I do it a lot. I would be terrified to leave my room because I would be like, I don't want to go out. And then what if I say something? I was so overwhelmed with that feeling, that terrified feeling of doing something stupid, especially like I'm in Italy, and I'm like, I'm just going to do something stupid. And then all the Italians are going to laugh at me and I'm going to be ridiculed in 10 different languages. And I was so worried about that. So I missed out on that opportunity. Yeah. So you at least can travel around and you're by yourself and you're doing your own thing and you're kind of relying on yourself, which I think is really cool. Yeah. It's really admirable. I like to, I mean, it's like, it's depressing and also freeing, but I love to remind myself that like nobody cares what you're doing. Like nobody's paying attention. I say that every day. Literally everyone's thinking about themselves all the time. Like, so true. And it's freeing. That's perfect advice I have to remind myself that all the time, and I always forget. Yeah. There's a show I love right now, Schitt's Creek. It's funny, but there's that scene where she's like, David, nobody cares. And it's just like, I was like, yes, it's true. So true. But it's so fun traveling alone because you get into these funny conversations that you wouldn't otherwise. So yesterday I was in Buffalo. I had to get buffalo wings in Buffalo. I've never been before. Where'd you go? Anchor Bar. Okay. It's one of the. It said it was the original, but I'm sure there's like 10 places that say the original. But the Anchor Bar is the place. Duff's is better though. Duff's. I heard about. The recording studio was like down the street from Anchor Bar, so I was like, let's go. But I was at the bar alone eating wings and stuff, and these 2 guys sat down next to me, which annoyed me because there were like a ton of other open bars, and I was like right next to me. I was on my phone, and I clearly didn't really want to chit chat that much, but it was the funniest anecdote for my trip so far because they offered to buy me a shot, and I was like, no, I'm good. And I had my big
Canon camera with me because I document my trip. And there was an Iron Maiden concert last night in Buffalo, and they thought that I was like a concert photographer, and they were trying to see if I could get them backstage. And I just thought it was so funny.
Just randomly thought that that's what you're there for?
Just because I had a camera with me. I think I should have like BS'd them a little bit, but no.
At least got him to pay for your wings.
I was like, what about me looks like an Iron Maiden photographer?
That's true.
This 1960s earrings.
Those are pretty cool. They're like a pom-poms or something.
So like my signature.
Hey, it's cool to have signature earrings.
Oh, man.
We'll give you the Kelsea Little earring collection.
Yes. That'd be awesome.
Well, you start a GoFundMe and get mom.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know how much we make that joke.
I'm sure. I had to be that guy to make that joke that everybody makes.
No, I like it. We do it all the time.
So you said you wanted to bring the podcast to the next level.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think that would be? What's the next level podcast to you, like in your mind?
I just want a lot more people to hear these stories.
More ears.
And then, I mean, we've had some. Okay, so this was crazy. I mean, it's cool to have. I love these like hometown stories the most, but we've had a couple celebrities on so far. So season 1, this was like a no-name podcast. I hadn't even put anything out yet, but Sean Astin was on the podcast, and he's like one of my personal heroes.
Yeah,
and so that was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And then just recently, a few episodes ago, I had Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard's daughter.
Get out of here.
And that was amazing.
Get out of here.
I was like, she's one of my boss's crushes. Is she one of your crushes as well? I could see it in your face.
I can't admit to that, but yes.
She's so beautiful.
I absolutely adore her.
Yeah. So that was...
Sean Astin's a crush of mine, too.
Oh, my God. Samesies. Both of them. Jeez.
You got to talk to both. And so was it like this kind of a situation where you said, or were there minions about?
No, it was just... So, like... Also, Sean Astin is so cool. He does his like own emailing. Like I emailed... You
emailed Sean. He's like, hey, it's Sean.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, all right. But both...
How'd you get his email?
Well, so he's done GoFundMe campaigns.
Oh, okay. So you had a contact.
Yeah. And so, but it was totally long shot. But those were two really exciting things. So I'd love to have, more people like that on would be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like I said, like these ones of just real people, like everyday heroes, we call them. I love these ones the most. Yeah. But I want everyone to hear their stories, and I want all these stories to get more support. So that's my goal. So however I can amplify it the most.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure you're going to get to where you want to go. It looks like, just based on your track record, it looks like you're the kind of person that when you put your mind towards something and you really focus on it, you get it done. And you've had a lot of good fortune, but you've also taken that good fortune and you've put a lot of hard work behind it. And that says something about you. So I appreciate you coming here.
Absolutely.
Bringing your podcast to my studio and also hanging out a little bit later to talk on The Blathering.
It was an honor.
It's been a pleasure and honor for me, and best of luck. How do people find the podcast? On iTunes?
You can listen on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's True Stories of Good People. True Stories of Good People. Yes. And you are one of those good people. Thank you. What were you going to say? I cut you off. Oh, I'm sorry. You can also follow our podcast social accounts at True Stories of Good People on Instagram and at TSGP Pod on Twitter. All right. And I just liked it on Facebook. Yes. Yes. Facebook as well. You're right. And you're going to see a huge spike in listeners once the Blather people find out. I hope so. That'd be so exciting. Welcome, Blatherers. Is that what your fans are called? Yeah. Now they are. Congratulations, you're now Blatherers. Yeah. Oh, Mom and Dad and my wife will be listening. Yay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.